the thing that I want for us is for us to have a meaningful conversation, something that is in something that makes a difference in our lives. So I'm your openness and your vulnerability. I understand you. I was reading on Wikipedia that you wrote something for Unity one
Oh my
time,
gosh,
that
that
you
was a
were
long time ago. Yeah.
exactly that you were before, as you were getting into recovery, as you were getting into this process, the concept of spirituality. What was that? What was that as a child? Did you grow up in a faith-based?
Well, I was baptized an Episcopalian, which is just this side of Catholicism, I guess. And my parents never made us go to church, but our farm um, was on the abutted a seminary, a
Yeah.
Catholic seminary for brothers learning to be priests. And their barn, their chicken barn, was right next to our barn where I milk goats and stuff. So I got to know some of the brothers, and we kids would sneak in on Sunday in our blue jeans and bare feet in the summer, and the Father Coffee would meet us at the fence and hurry us into a room so nobody would see us without hats and Sunday best. But they loved us because we would go home and we'd say, well, Father Coffee said blah, blah, blah. And my father would say, that is BS. I won't say the word. I don't want to shock Olivia fans, but my father would say, that's crap. And so I'd go back the next Sunday and say, my father said. So the priest would then we challenged them and they loved it. And I said, how come you like us coming over here when we're not Catholic and everything? And they said, well, you make us think. And we like the fact that you think. And they took us up to one of the classrooms where all the students were just sitting there bored out of their minds, and dressed right. They'd have hats on and all the right things, but they weren't involved. And we got involved and we would challenge the priests. They love that. They love that about us.
We were talking with our director, Renee Yaworski, right before the
Yes.
show, and we were talking about how women's roles and the evolution of women's roles and how coming on the Waltons and playing that powerful role. I mean, this is the evolution of where we're seeing women stand up. We need you so much. We poor old white men have taken this just about as far as we can. We
Well,
need your help. We need this collaboration.
I think that men have changed. They've
Have you seen us grow? Have you
Yes,
seen us
absolutely. I
finally
see it in my
grow?
sons who would help they were partners with their wives in raising the children. When my kids were little, my husband did nothing. I mean, he'd take home movies when they were playing in the leaves, or read a story occasionally. He was a good man. He was a good father, but he wasn't engaged with the kids. He wasn't connected. And I think men now, my sons, I see them with their kids who are now young adults,
Yeah.
but they were involved. They were involved. My youngest son used to make fairy castles for his daughter out in the yard. He'd make little crystal trails that would lead to a little cave that would have a little something in it that would be like an imp or an elf or whatever. And he created magic for her. And I don't think men in my era, in the 50s, they became
Our era.
your area. But I don't know if you're one of those men, but my husband's really wanted to be treated like the children.
Yeah.
And
That's the change in what we're
yes,
doing. And I'm so glad that we have this different.
yes, it benefits everybody, I think. I am now partners with my husband. We we are partners. We're equals. There's no, I don't warm his martini glasses. I'm picking up all the toys so that he won't fall over them or whatever. And uh, I confront him and he laughs most of the time, which is very reassuring when a man can laugh when you're being a jerk, you know? So, yeah, I think it's worked for men as well as women, this whole women's lib thing,
Yep,
so-called lib thing.
exactly. I wanted to ask you about something because you went through with Olivia and this iconic role in the Waltons. You went through what so many of us of all ages are looking for, that iconic moment when you go into any grocery store, you're on the magazine covers, you're famous and going, what was that experience like? The experience that went through, and what did you learn about yourself during that time?
Nobody ever knew me. Nobody ever knew who I was. It was wonderful in a way because um, I could get a table at a restaurant, a nice table, if somebody told them who I was. But if I just left my own name, they thought I was a guy. So I got the best of both worlds. I could be anonymous, and I could also have somebody, my manager or agent or somebody, call up and book a table for Michael Learned, the woman on the Waltons. But it was all, I got the best. I could go to the grocery store and not be recognized, and get into conversations with people. And I was talking earlier about a time when we were standing in line for a movie. I was with my kids. My youngest was about 10 maybe. And he said, "Mom, you don't have to stand in line. You're a celebrity." And I said, I want to stand in line. It's more fun to stand in line. You get to talk to people. And this celebrity isn't going to last forever, honey. So let you just get used to being human like everybody else, because that's what we are. And he got it. He totally got it. And we stood in line and we eventually got into the movie, and we had a lot of fun talking to people. And some people recognized me and some didn't. So as I say, I got the best of both.
Absolutely. Was there pressure on you from the agents and all to change your name when you were when you were early in your career?
Yes, there was a SAG did, Screen Actors Guild, the union wanted me to change my name because there was a Michael Lerner, Lerner, who's a good, wonderful actor. And they thought my name was too similar. So I think what they did was they put a Miss Michael Learned, so that, not because I was being grand or fancy, but because it set me apart from Michael Lerner. It made it clear that I was a woman. And that's the only hassle I ever had. After that, for a while I was Michael D. Learned, and that just kind of dissipated, thankfully, and I became Miss Michael Learned, which I like much better.
Uh, can can you talk a little bit about the opportunities that you're seeing now? I mean, I'm 76 this year. I'm getting a chance to and you have crossed that wonderful 80 threshold, so that you're enjoying
Yeah.
that. Can you talk about this process? And because I want I believe that this can be a rich time, a time of its own that has its own elegance and its own moments that is incomparable to other times. And I'd like to know your experience with it.
Oh, that's a long question. I mean, that deserves a long answer. And um, I guess I'm comfortable with being a flawed human being. When I was young, I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to get it right. I wanted to be the best mom, the best friend, the best wife, the best. It was just very arrogant, actually. But I wanted to get it all right. And I was telling a friend, they should put on my tombstone, "She tried and died," because there's no such thing as a perfect person. And it was such a struggle. Um, but I did try, and I just finally had to become a human being, deeply flawed and with some good points. I mean, I've done some good things in my life. Mostly, I've been blessed with children that I loved and enjoyed. Um, Not everybody enjoys their children when they're little. It's hard work. It really is. But I got a kick out of it. So I was lucky, and they just made me laugh. I had a wonderful time with them, and I finally figured out. I told my young son. He said, "You never here when we need you," because when I was doing the Waltons, that's true. And I said, then that's when you pray inside. You go, "God, please." help me here. I don't know what to tell him. I don't know what to tell him. And then suddenly you find yourself saying something wise. And I said, well, that's true. And you need to get things off your chest when I'm not here. So why don't you write it down when you what you're feeling at the time, and put your notes in my jewelry box. And I didn't know that there was a Freudian meaning of in jewelry box. I didn't know that at the time. But I said, put your notes in my jewelry box. I'll read them when I get home from work, and we'll talk about them in the morning. And I think it was inspired literally by God, because I wasn't that clever, but it worked. And I'd come home and I'd find, I hate you today because I was having trouble with my homework and you weren't here to help me, and you're a terrible mom. And then I'd come home and find, oh, I love you so much, Mom. You're the best mom in the world, blah, 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 blah. And thank you for this. And thank you for your notes in my lunchbox. And I usually made their lunch and put notes in it for them from me, so that I'd be with them at least for part of the day. And I had a wonderful housekeeper named Mrs. Blair, who was just a saint in my life. I couldn't have done it without her. She was, God, such a blessing. I always called her Mrs. Blair, and she called me Michael. And I was with her when she died. She was a blessing. So
That
I
process
had some
of,
angels in my life.
yes, the angels really make such a difference when, and they aren't always the people that are just there. I mean, they can be in the store where we're passing. There can be so
Yes.
much of paying attention. What I find is that what I pay attention to grows. If I'm looking at lack or what is not in my life, that will tend to grow. But if I'm looking at the blessings, I look at the things that are wonderful in my life, those things tend to grow. It's an interesting experience.
It is, living is interesting. As long as I find it interesting, I hope I'll still be here.
Yeah. So
But I'm
what is on,
85, so I look at that, I look at them, if I'm lucky, maybe I have 10 years.
yeah,
Probably have more like 7 or 6. And when your life comes, you're younger than I am, so, but when your life comes and instead of being this, it's this, you become very mindful of how lucky you are just to breathe in the fresh air and walk out in the street. And in this town, there's endless sunshine, but I get bored with that sometimes. But in March, I like it. But I'm looking up, you can't see it, but I have a picture of my youngest son, and a picture of a play that I did with Hal Linden and Bill Ball, who was the artistic director of the American Conservatory Theater, and another picture of a woman, a Japanese woman who was like a grandmother to me. All these people that I love. Can you see? What can you see?
I can
These are
see.
all my kids. You
Yes,
can't
I can
see
see
them.
that. Yeah, I can see those
But
wobble.
anyway, I'm surrounded by people that I love, which is good for me to feel that, and they love me in return, which makes them feel better. So
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate, but I didn't always feel that way. I had a lot of hard years where I was really depressed, very angry woman, but I didn't know it. So it turned it in on me and was very depressed. When I found my anger, I was liberated. I wasn't always nice either. I mean, I would
How
yell at
did you deal
taxi
with
cab
that?
drivers. Mhm.
How did you deal with the anger issues and deal with that those kinds of things that are coming up, Michael?
Well, I didn't let people walk on me. I mean, I was the kind of person, if someone kicked me, I would say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was in your way, which is, it's insane.
Yep.
And I got to the point where I could say, you don't have any right to kick me. I didn't do anything to you, and it doesn't sit well with me. So don't try it again. I even yelled at a homeless man who had his feet across the sidewalks. So everybody was having to cross the street to not have to step over him. And I let him have it. I said, who do you think you are that you sit here with your feet across the street and you're making people walk across the street and you're making comments at women and things like that? And I just reamed him out. I wouldn't do that today, probably. I would probably be kinder. But during that period in my life, I was beginning to fight back. And I wasn't always smart about it, but I think sometimes you just have to own your anger and own that you're an angry person. And then you can direct it in a positive way, like the Jewish people did during the Second World War. I mean, what they went through. And instead of moaning and groaning about it, they did things about it. They started agencies that were helping Jewish people and relocating people, and they worked to make things better for themselves and others. And but they could have just sat around being angry all day. And I admire them so much. I've read a lot about the Holocaust, and it's beyond imagining what happened to those people, and children and old people. And it's beyond imagining that such evil can exist and be allowed. I'm so glad we finally got into the war.
Right. And so that
Otherwise,
now,
there would be no Jewish people if Hitler had won.
no. And this is, I mean, this is all part. So how do you see life in the 21st century here in the 2020s, and that is going on? What's your sense? Because you and I have gone through such changes in humanity. I mean, we have seen an enormous evolution in consciousness of the human being. And what are some of your senses of what's going on now, and what are the things you're curious about?
I'm not curious about things anymore. I used to be. I was probably a better person then, but um, you know, I think young people don't have boundaries. Some young kids don't have enough boundaries. And by boundaries, I don't mean being punished or scolded. I just mean being taught what's right and what's wrong. And as you see it, they don't have to agree with you, but this is how I see it. How do you see it? And then they get a chance to tell you how they're seeing it. And then you maybe get to kind of come together a little bit on something, at least one thing. And I think kids need boundaries. They need to know that they can go so far and no further. That I was too permissive with my kids, and luckily they turned out okay. You know, they're really nice people because they knew they were loved. And I did, you know, I went on strike. And I said, I'm on strike. I'm not cooking dinner. I'm not putting the groceries away. And they used it in a show. I suggested it to Earl Hamner, and he used it. Olivia went on strike. And I literally did. I said, I'm tired. I'm sick of your problems. I wasn't very nice. I failed. And but it was wonderful because my son, my youngest, said, can we say good morning? I said, yes, you could say good morning. But and I did cook dinner, and it was all fine. But for a moment, I was just too damn tired to listen, to immediately engage in their problems that they'd been carrying all day, of
Sure.
course. But on that day, I just couldn't do it. And
Hey, Michael, parents are people too.
yes, yeah,
I mean, you have a whole arc, even though they have their children, and you have children that each one of them, you're an individual person, and you have times when you're exasperated, and you have times when but the whole process, I love that you have it. The fact is, they knew that they were loved,
loved, and they did. They always knew that.
and that is the core. I mean, that's the core.
And that I enjoyed them. I
Exactly.
loved being with them. It wasn't a duty or a job. I just did, I got a kick out of my kids. Even when things were bad or when I was overtired or whatever, they always somehow jollied me out of it. Just Luke saying, can we say good morning? I mean, I caved, you know. Yes, you can say good morning
Yes, go ahead.
tomorrow. Maybe not tonight, but anyway. And I don't know. They're really nice men. I enjoy them as men. I enjoyed them as children. I'm lucky. Their wives are. I love their wives. They have
Wonderful.
great women, and I have 5 grandkids. So how could it get any better than that? But I had to work for it, and I think some people think it's just lands in your lap. Well, I had a lot land in my lap, but I wasn't enough of a person to appreciate the gifts that I was being given because I was so unhappy. Um, and now I'm content. I'm at peace. I don't mind if people see me not perfect anymore. You know, I never was perfect, but I mean, I used to mind, I used to try to be, and there's no such thing. I don't like perfect people, do you? Does anybody
No,
like a perfect person?
no, I would much rather meet the real Michael Learned and be
Well,
able to see this process that we have, because I know that self-forgiveness and going through it, it seems like that any time that I am angry or upset, is that there's something that I'm holding against myself.
usually, yeah,
I have to have that internal peace. I have to have that internal work if I'm going to make any progress at all.
you're absolutely right. And I've had a lot of therapy and I've worked really hard, a lot of long walks talking to myself, not out loud, but in my inner self and trying to figure out where I've gone wrong and being responsible for it. I don't have to be a perfect person. I can have flaws. I can still be loved and I can still love and not be a perfect person. It's such a relief. It's exhausting to try to be perfect.
I love having the definition of perfect as being complete.
Well,
It
that's
doesn't
all.
mean without flaw. It's not without flaws, but it is complete. We're whole. We're a
Yeah.
whole, perfect child of the universe, complete, unique. It's who we are.
Do you find that you had your trials, your tribulations that you had to sort of keep walking through until you could come out the other side?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is any other greater wisdom than just to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Stay in today, stay in the footwork, and stay out of the results. I
Get
have
out of
no
your way.
control over the results.
Yeah.
Footwork, that I can do.
Yeah. And I do too. And I feel like I'm on a path. Sometimes the path goes that way and I go that way.
Mhm.
And I have to
Yep.
get back on the path again. But
I'm in the brambles. I'm in the, I
it's
get back
right,
on.
it hurts. I don't like being over here. I must have taken the wrong road. But I everything has been worth it. And I had some rough years, not because anything outside was rough, all the outside was good, but because I was going through I didn't know I was an angry person. I loved it when I figured out I was an angry person. I really
Yes.
did. Because I wouldn't I really was the kind of person when I was young, if an old lady kicked me or hit me with her cane, I'd say, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
Now I say, don't ever do that to me again. And I'm
Yep.
not going to stand up for you if you're going to hit me on my leg, or whatever. But I wouldn't put up with that kind of behavior now. Yeah. And I
No.
think that makes me a real person as opposed to somebody trying to be a martyr.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
no, that's the difference. Well, what haven't we talked about today that is on your mind or on your heart that's interesting to you?
Now, I think the world is turning as it should. I think there are good people in the world, a lot of good people. I think everybody that I've talked to lately is trying in some way to work out his or her life. And I think the people that scare me are people who are ignorant and aren't interested in trying to be somehow a little better, um, or don't accept their own flaws in a way like I was. I like me much better now that I'm not perfect than I was when I was trying to be something I'm not.
Yeah. Trying to live in. I am so glad that you were so tenacious to get on this.
Thank God.
Thank you for this, because I needed to meet you and to experience your light and to experience the gifts that you bring to all of us, just because of your humanity and because of who you are, the whole complete Michael Learned.
Thank you so much. I feel like I've made a friend, so it's
Me
always
too.
nice. Yeah.
I feel that, Michael. I look forward to talking with you at some time in the future, and thank you for spending this
Me
time with
too.
me
And
today.
thank you as well, because you made it easy. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely. We will see you again.